Hello and welcome everybody, I'm Barbarian and we have something here that many of you thought myth and legend and not real and potentially quite dead, and yet it is here. We have the very first dev diary about Crusader Kings III Coronations. This is an event pack DLC that has been teased a while ago and then nothing. Instead we of course heard about All Under Heaven, but now here we are. This is just the very first dev diary about this DLC. We don't learn too much about the details of this introduction of, the activity, the mechanic and so on. I am actually very happy with the design principles that can be found in this dev diary. Let's just jump straight in. Again, this one isn't too long, but I want to highlight a couple of things that showcase to me that we are looking at maybe my upcoming favorite event pack. We're gonna see how it goes. Crown-wearing kings and regalia-bearing queen. As you read these very words, you might, by claim of blood or right of conquest, be happily nesting in a Crusader Kings III throne. Perhaps you're just about to become king, just about to plop one of our lovingly rendered crowns on your most worthy head. Congratulations, that's one hell of a moment to celebrate. Enter the coronation activity. This first and very likely most iconic sacral moment of kingship is the centerpiece of our laser-focused new event pack. Our fans have long yearned to see this ceremony realized in digital cathedrals and in virtual flesh. I, humble brother Jason of the Design Scriptorium, I'm here to give you a sense of the kingly activity to come. So this is something that I've wanted for a long time. I've played with the mod. I will say the mod also, honestly, it's a good mod, it's great fun, but this obviously needs to go a whole bit further. Let's take a look at this right here. What do we have here? Coronation, the crowning of Władysław. I think that is how it is pronounced. We have an artifact called Crown of the Kingdom of Poland. That is interesting. They don't say it here, but I really hope that the actual crown and smithing one and putting emphasis on this being the insignia of the realm, that this plays a role well beyond the actual coronation. Forth come the royal symbols. The glittering sword is girded to my hip, the scepter of sovereign authority taken up in my hand. My fingers wrap around the globus cruciger. To my body come the armils and the pallium. The prayers rumble on. So this right here, of course, these are the explanatory kind of tooltips that you can get. They added this recently, right, where you can see the historical context explained. I really like that. Graced by royal treasures, I kneel. Just this one final time. For the King of Poland, the king I am able to truly become, he bows only to God. Then you can see right here, your intent, impress attendees. You have a magnificence tracker, so this is a grand activity. It tracks magnificence, and we want to impress the attendees. I assume that you can also kind of, suppress them. You can try to become very feared, that kind of stuff. The crown is placed atop my brow, and that is the actual coronation. Let's talk a bit about the vision. With this event pack, we tried something a little different from the formula employed in Wandering Nobles, Wards and Wardens, and Friends and Foes. Where these prior event packs scattered little tasty flavor treats throughout the game, Coronations is instead one single discrete bundle of highly visible and mechanically impactful content. You will not have to search it out. This DLC presents itself to you in fanfare and anticipation, the moment you die. Or, well, the moment you graduate to kingship, either one is good. Let me tell you, in this paragraph right here, I see something amazing and I see something worrying, but I can also already tell you that later on in this dev diary, the worrying part kind of just goes away. Just so you know, you're gonna see that in a bit. Basically, what I really like here is that they very clearly identified Wandering Nobles, Wards and Wardens, and Friends and Foes, whatever the content might be. It's kind of all over the place. None of these DLC, and I've said this several times publicly as well, none of these DLCs make me go, wow, I'm really excited for this. Even if the content is nice. I mean, listen, I like hostages. I like, for example, feuds, especially once they are enhanced under the All Under Heaven DLC, or rather the update, right? Where you actually get an house ticker, that kind of stuff, with regards to what your relation to House A and House B is. I think that is great. I also like the actual lifestyle trees. I like the activities added in Wandering Nobles. All that stuff is nice, but do I ever go, whoa, I need that content, I really want it? I don't think that is true. They are so kind of separated, they're kind of all over the place in terms of when you access the content. I understand what they're doing there. It enriches the game in general, but ultimately it makes me go, yeah, okay, whatever. I had a very different experience, for example, with Victoria 3. I know this is semi-controversial, but I really don't agree with the controversial nature of this at all. I love the Day and Night DLC because of how omnipresent it is. I constantly see something, it makes the map prettier, it constantly leaves basically an impact in how I play the game. I really like DLCs if they have to be tiny, if they are very hyper-focused. I think that is great. So this is a lesson learned here that I can only support. The other thing that might, kind of, should possibly worry you, again, they do resolve it later on, but the other thing here is that this is essentially a forced activity. If you have seen my content related to all these Chinese activities that they added, or rather the main one that they added, which is the exam, right? Where it's kind of like, yeah, if you want to advance, you have to go there. There's not really any other opportunity that you have. This is what you want to do. to take part in the exam. And I personally, I still am very worrisome about this. I'm curious what this will ultimately look like, but fundamentally from where I'm coming from, it's kind of like, okay, well, we'll see how it actually turns out. Again, they do kind of address this. The risk with these kind of forced activities is that if you have to do it, there's a really high chance that you've seen all of the content, all of the events, all of the routes that you can take, and you say to yourself, this is boring, I'm just going to click through it, and that is it. Supposedly, they have a solution for this. Let's keep reading. So yes, this DLC is focused squarely on the beginning of a new reign, on your initial years as a sovereign. They're often dramatic years, aren't they? With factions, claimants, new friends, counselors and rivals, new goals to set, and new boundaries to gaze upon. Your ruler's coronation won't take place in isolation from these fresh horrors and newfound delights. No, our intent is that the activity helps them situate themselves in their new position. It should highlight your new foes and help you identify the sources of your new character's strength. By holding a coronation, you might hope to, without the strain of war, address the teething problems of new rule that we all know well, factions, claimants, and so on. This might end, however, in your coronation being a venue for your humiliation and even deposition. Don't fear though, such a debacle would require a few significant political miscalculations on your part. I really like the idea that rather than this being, and this is what the mod does, and I really want to say the mod that I'm playing with, I still really like it, I think it's really cool, but there is a difference of course. Every time I die I go, oh, I gotta do the coronation. This is apparently more kind of one of those things where you go, hey, what we're doing here is giving you a grander overview of who your enemies will be, where your life will be going, and they mention it later as well. You might even pick up an objective for your life. I really like this angle. It embeds it much more nicely, and it makes it so that it should be different depending on, of course, what the setup is, how wealthy you are, how many people dislike or like you, what your predecessor was, and so on. What we have right here are major detractors and major supporters. Right now we only have Count Arkadius, and then we have Prince Bishop Lambert. Where is this? Hungary? Oh, Poland, of course. Prince Bishop Michael and Count Lutoslav. These are the people that dislike us. This is the person that likes us. Maybe this is only down to having positive opinion. You can see right here he is also terrified, or at least afraid, right? So maybe he shouldn't be here as a major detractor unless this is purely just negative here. Let's see what they want to do. He wants to offer support, disrupt loyalists, seize advantages, and advocate domain. Clearly, we can immediately see here that even as a vassal, you can set something up. You can go, hey, I want to do something, I want to achieve something at this activity, meaning it will be different for you each time. I really like that. The vassals of Poland come forth to give their allegiance, one after another raising open-palmed hands, one after another bending to give kisses of fealty. But my vassals neglect the gestures of respect. Someone hisses, Władysław, Zaraza, and disturbs the proper words. Duke Vosh glares poison into my eyes during his oath-giving. Count Jan toys with a dagger and hardly whispers, behold, traitors, your kings might, or they hate me, yet they cannot stop me. This is apparently a Aspiring Blade right here, so clearly you're just beating them up, but that is interesting, right? So this is much like people giving you your oath as it already exists, except maybe more impactful, because it all happens in the context of them having ambitions right there. That is really cool. Conversely, if your succession is smooth as butter on warm toast, then coronations become a fine exercise in patting yourself on the back. A beloved, highly capable ruler has every right to pull through with fresh modifiers, currencies, and incentives in hand. A soon-to-come developer diary will dig deeper into the mechanics of the coronation activity and the oaths on offer. What I present to you now is a top-level overview. Let's talk about the coronation activity. Coronations are a new activity type available to kings and emperors. They are accompanied by a new realm law, which states whether your ruler is crowned or uncrowned. While uncrowned, you suffer opinion and legitimacy malus. The only way to become crowned is to host a coronation. Both the activity and the new laws are DLC-only content and will not affect players who don't own this event pack. That is, of course, quite straightforward, sure. I will say, framing this as a crown law is obviously weird. This isn't a crown law, it's not a law. This is basically a state of affairs. It is a temporary change to what is happening in the realm. It's okay to do this in this menu just because this is where everything that directly corresponds between you and your realm directly, a massive impact is very similar to limited crown authority, your succession laws, that kind of thing. I get why it's here. But I wish this section got like a rework. I wish we had proper laws altogether, but it doesn't really matter. All I'm saying is, it's weird to have this in this section, but beyond this, it makes sense that you have this categorized so that you see the effect, and of course you see, as a vassal as well, whether your liege is doing something or is failing to do something, in this case, which is of course hosting a coronation. The effects here, I think, are fine. I personally like being under the expectation level for legitimacy, just because it is great roleplay potential. I'm not being seen as the ideal king, so yeah, listen, I like this. I think this is nice. Legitimacy minus 2.5 per month is massive though. So clearly, you will want to have a coronation. You may only host a coronation when first becoming a king or emperor. Thus, a coronation host must either be a new heir succeeding to the throne or a ruler who has just increased their title tier. The majority of CK sovereigns will only ever hold one coronation, but this DLC strongly incentivizes everyone king tier and above to host a coronation. Yeah, strongly incentivizes. The coronation activity brings together courtiers, vassals, and neighboring rulers to witness the creation of a new sovereign, to socialize, and to politic frenetically in the shadows. Equipped with an array of intents for hosts and attending characters, and with a wide range of events, coronation is a relatively reliable source of legitimacy, opinion, and prestige for the host, but can be employed towards many other ends as well. Let's take a look at this right here. Coronation, friends everywhere. With a few art ceremonial flourishes, the Maghrebi Sheikh of Malta gestures for a moment of my time. Bearing a jewel-encrusted casket in hand, Ramadan addresses the hall. Your Grace, accept this token of goodwill from the Maltese court. May it symbolize a lasting bond between our realms. So this is the Byzantine Empire, right? And then the Count of Malta. I will cherish this gift and our enduring friendship. This gives you 15 bucks. Can you see this? You know what? This way you can see it. There you go. The cultural acceptance between the Greeks and the Maghrebis increases by 1%. The magnificence of the coronation increases slightly. And because of your impress attendees intent, they get 5 opinion if they are courtly or minority vassals. You could also say, I graciously accept and pledge my goodwill, which is like a medium thing, I guess. And I thank you, but must humbly decline. I assume like glory hounds, that kind of stuff, right? Because this is a foreign, wrong religion count of just some rock in the island Malta, right? We also here have a bunch more major supporters. We get offer support, offer support, offer support, and bear witness. Ooh, I wonder what that is. Okay, but either way. So clearly there is a focus on making this different, considering who are the people around you and so on, and making this one particular activity non-repetitive by always having it directly correspond to what is going on in and around your realm. Mechanically, the coronation activity focuses on replayability, on reactivity to a current situation, and on agency for both the attendees and host. Through time and across space, coronation ceremonies tended to hit many of the same beats, to use many of the same ideas and phrases, but the context of their words were ever changing, and we designed with that mutability in mind. These moments were never merely ceremonial, they were always also political. So I will tell you that with this sentence right here, Paradox is proving that they know what the strongest element of an activity is. Activities are always one of those things where I go, if they're optional, that's perfect, because if I really feel like doing it, I will be doing it. If they're not optional, they have to be so varied, I swear, so varied, that I basically treat them as different particular activities, because they will always have a different outcome. This is something that you need to kneel into if you are Paradox, that they are doing right here. Everybody gets agency and everybody gets an intent. It's very, very important. What I will say right here is, and they mention it kind of, but not really, if we had a more fleshed out legal system, a law system, then kind of the obligation to attend this, the obligation to swear an oath, that kind of stuff, could develop over time as well, because it is said correctly here by Jason that these type of things are developing things. You step into this and at the start, people that attend, they do it out of goodwill because you're friends, that kind of thing, and then later on, it is their oath. If they don't attend, they are actually traitors and you can, well, do whatever you want to them, right? So the idea here being that this is something that is deeply rooted indeed in the very same ceremonies, but as you speak the words, they mean something different when you do it. I wish that they would go deeper into this, but honestly, this is an event pack. It kind of prepares the grounds, quite possibly, for this being expanded upon once we get proper laws. And then right here we have Coronation Unheard. I notice Emir Ubaid casting furtive glances in my direction. He smiles invitingly and finally approaches me. With a respectful bow, he starts. Dearest Sultan Al-Muazzam, us Mashrikis wish to support you now and in the days to come. The crown will soon rest on your head, but will our customs rest in your heart? I will speak the language of your heart. Everyone must know of my love for the Mashrikis, or the coronation calls for a different focus. Okay, so if you don't want to pledge yourself to that, that is interesting. This seems to be, well, he's an emir. He's not exactly, you know, an unknown guy. Interesting event. I think one of the least interesting ones that we've seen so far, but okay, let's move on. Our guiding principle for coronation flavor was to create content that feels truly regal. You know what, let me actually... Our guiding principle for coronation flavor was to create content that feels truly regal, truly historic, worthy of Charlemagne, Genghis, and mighty Baldwin of the great and righteous Latin Empire. Indeed, because coronations can only be held by king and emperor tier rulers, If someone's disrespecting a host at their own coronation, that someone is going to have a damn good reason and is very likely going to pay dearly for their poor manners. Yeah, you need to get an impact out of this, so that opposing them does something. I can compare, for example, compare it to the Byzantine events, where you as local ruler in the Byzantine Empire can be like, oh, down with this emperor, and the impact is, I think, a loss of resources, and that is literally it. It's kind of weird, right? This needs to be impactful, and they got the memo. I love it. Now next up, the main regional flavor focuses of this DLC are Christian and Western European. Makes perfect sense, that is exactly where this kind of lies. Therein are found the most widely recognized symbols of medieval coronation, and furthermore, the rites of coronation across Christendom, though varied in order and form, were honestly quite surprising to me in their relative uniformity. That's not to say they aren't triggered events and flavor for different faiths and government types. These are just a little harder to spot than our Orbis Crusader activity icon. Right, magnificence right there. So this is, it's this, by the way. Magnificence. As I mentioned, coronations can either be an absolute cakewalk or a rough ride, based on the competence of your ruler, the wealth at your disposal, and the opinion of your attendees. Magnificence, the measure of a coronation's success, is the main metric that we use to determine how troubled and unflattering your coronation is becoming, or how majestic and glorious. It's drawn from the coronation setup, from the actions of the host, and the maneuvering of the most significant friendly and hostile attendees. All I will say right now is, you probably don't want to skimp on the activity options, unless you really have to. Let's take a look at this. So this is, of course, William the Conqueror. He has his attendees right there, Duke Robert, Duke William II, then we got Matilda and Duke William II as well. Not too many names to go around there, huh? Legitimacy and prestige activity reward plus 75%, oath reward plus 75% as well, and intent vassal guest opinion gain plus 15. The coronation lingered in memories. Its pageantry and solemn rites oft spoken of in noble halls and courtly gatherings. Right, so this was a very successful one. I am worried. This is the one thing that I will say as well, and this is something that I noticed playing the mod, that when you notice that you are about to die, even if you're a great player and you're not concerned by the, potential issue of vassals forming faction, that kind of stuff, coronations make it so that, starting at like age 60, you get a massive money buffer that you start saving up, which, okay, makes sense, yeah, contextually, that is very reasonable, but it also makes the following period until you die a lot more boring. How exactly that plays out, whether we are going to like sit there and desperately try to kind of get that money together, who knows, but either way, I hope that I can basically do it for nothing, even if it brings disgrace. I just kind of want, having the options there be wide enough, even if it comes very negatively, if I don't pay all too much, I would sometimes want to do it, and in that case, I would like to have the option. Host and guest interplay. A king is made by the assent of the church, of his nobles, and I guess the common people. Coronations aim to highlight all these relationships and give both host and guest the means to explore them. To aid in this, we have added a widget to the coronation activity interface to help you track the most powerful supporters, characters who like you, the host. It seems to be just opinion based here, right? And detractors, jerks, at your coronation. These groupings don't mean anything beyond the activity, but have a significant impact on its outcome. I assume that they will essentially drive up the magnificence if they agree, and the more you spend, the more willing will they be to agree. It's fine, this is completely reasonable at the end of the day. I do like this. I just hope that there's enough focus, of course, on actually making it so that these people matter, and if they come out of this really hating you, that then the faction game starts playing. But we're going to learn more about this in future dev diaries. It sounds to me like they're doing that, and I'm really looking forward to it. My great brother, Sultan Takish, has left his pleasant seat in Armenia to celebrate my coronation. His presence here is a sign of support, of trust, of shared bond of blood. Rather break than bend. These words have guided August through generations. Our ancestors have carried it through thick and thin, whether together or alone. It is up to Sultan Takish and I to carry them further. I'm very pleased to see you here. Welcome, my brother, or you will witness the ascension of a true August. So this is very, very kind of cooperative. This is okay, and this is, I am cool, and, well, you are here, I guess. Ooh, look at that. They actually have something new. Atabek Kemal has profess rights. Interesting. Profess rights, I assume, is them asserting something in their favor, maybe, either in the Liberty faction or maybe in their contract. If you were to repel them, I would assume that they will be very eager to join a Liberty-type faction thing, right? Attendees may use their intents to support the new sovereign, to undermine the coronation, or most often to push forward their own interests. Hosts, meanwhile, use intents mainly to focus on one group of attendees over another, and manage the members of that group. Now, let's talk about something and become, I think, immediately to something that many of you probably looked at and went, wait a minute, something is missing. And I think something is still missing, but I am very interested to see whether it is included here, at least somewhat. I can see the crown in the background, we're gonna talk about that in just a second, or whether that is subject to a future DLC. The coronation activity can be held as a regular old coronation or a more special type, anointment. Only available to Emperor tier rulers of appropriate faiths, anointment is a grander ceremony that features your head of faith as crowning officiant. It must be held at a holy site and has some additional requirements which weed out sinners and illegitimate sovereigns. Anointment offers additional bonuses, particularly where legitimacy and the opinion of others are concerned. First of all, I like the art. I always like the art. This is the crown of the Holy Roman Empire. Obviously, this is the Pope. You can see it with this hat. I really hope that this is mandatory for the HRE. That's all I can say. I hope that this is mandatory for the HRE, okay? Because obviously, yes, the Byzantines also, but what we're talking about here is the quintessential relationship between the Holy Roman Empire and the papacy that gave the papacy so much power going forward. Prove your legitimacy beyond doubt, gain piety, fervor, and the favor of zealot vassals, swear an oath and pledge the course of your reign, gain opinion with vassals, gain opinion with other rulers, and vassals may leave factions. Must be held in a holy site of your faith. I hope that for the HRE, it always has to be Rome, and it always has to be anointment and never coronation. I would just really like this, but I'm going to be honest with you, maybe the Italian Zug, so the move towards Italy, towards Rome, and then getting your coronation there after being elected, maybe that's going to get focus in like a separate HRE DLC. I think there is room for an HRE DLC anyway, but I can tell you right now, this already clearly they understood that there is a need for the HRE to be a little bit special. I just hope that doing a normal coronation by a bishop is, well, basically impossible. That shouldn't happen. Obviously, you can get crowned there, but it's not the true coronation. At most, it is the coronation of the King of the Germans rather than the Emperor of Rome. I like this. What they're doing here is understanding activities, they're taking it to the next level, and they're doing it with a focus on Western European flavor, because that is exactly what this is all about, like where the important structure here comes from. Before we call it a day, let's talk about oaths. Though, as I've said earlier, the body of this DLC is firmly rooted in the early reign, its arm reach out across your ruler's years on the throne. During coronations, you will be called upon to select an oath, a timed decision that is, in essence, an objective for your rule. Sometimes the transition from one PC to another can dull a player's sense of purpose and stagger the momentum of their game. Committing your new ruler to an oath sets you on a new path, and may serve to get things rolling again. I love this. On a meta level, the design perspective where they are saying sometimes you were really in love with a character and then he dies or she dies and you find yourself in the middle of nowhere, you're not sure what is to follow, you're not sure what matters now. What do you do from there? Answer, coronation. I love it on a meta perspective, and on an in-game perspective, I'm like, I wish that we had more of this. I want to be able to hold diets, to have Reichstage, right? So to make it so that they have expectations, I have expectations on them, and if I succeed, I kind of bolster my position in the struggle between the liege and indeed the vassal as well. Be it something internal like rooting out, getting rid of heretics, heathens, or be it winning wars, be that making a good decision related to the church, that kind of thing, giving land to the church even. I would love all of this. These oaths are the cherry on top. What we have here is the very first event pack that kind of gets me excited for what it is, okay? I think there are a ton of correct decisions made right here. Let's see whether the actual content, of course, is as flexible and as kind of corresponding to your reality as they say it is, but this sounds great. I bid you farewell, friends, kings, queens, and gamers. Until next time, a right of crowns and royal heads and downwards placing type motions of the hands. If you have any thoughts or ideas about coronations in CK3, do sound off in the comments. Folks, I'm gonna leave you right here. I love this. I am wholly positive about this. I'm glad, man, I'm glad. I said this time and time again, and I don't want to be too negative because I'm really not about that. All Under Heaven looks good in many ways. Yes, I have doubts here and there, but it looks good in many ways. And at the end of the day, it had to come. But I am glad that even in the year of Asia, we get some fodder, some content for us here, you know, that are more playing in the Western side there. Again, I really like what they're doing here. This is obviously very, very focused on the Christian world. A big impact, and I think the right design philosophies. Folks, I'm going to leave you right here. Let me know whether you are as excited and for the very first time excited about an event pack as I am. I will see you later, alligator.